Hello, dear student. This is our story, Laugh, okay? From the title, Laugh, I want you to predict, to guess, to think in your mind, what could this title refer to? Laugh. Does it, for example, refer to laughing or giggling? Or does it refer to a name of someone or something? Now, according to your prediction, I want you to keep your predictions in your mind later until we start reading the story. Then you will see if your prediction about this title, Laugh, is it correct or not. Okay? Now, our story is a science fiction story. This is the genre of our story, which means that it has something related to science, maybe an invention, or a scientist who's doing something, or an experiment maybe. We will see that when we read the story. And it's fiction, which means that it's unreal story. So anything happened now in our story is unreal, and it's related to science. Okay, now let's see here the essential question. What role does imagination play in the invention process? So, from the essential question, we can understand that mostly our story is about an invention, a scientific invention. But here, our story will concentrate about how the imagination is important in making any invention, which means that when a scientist wants to invent something, create something, make a project or whatever, he will start imagining how his work is going to be, how this invention is going to be. So, according to his imagination, he is going to start the work and do it. So we will see in our story how the imagination is important in any invention process. Okay, now our story concentrate on the story structure, or let's say the story elements. What do I mean by the story elements? The main parts that our story is made up of, like setting, which means place and time, when and where the story took place, the characters, people in our story, and we have main characters and minor characters, and the plot events. And the plot events including the conflict, which is the problem that the main character or the main characters are facing, the main events after the problem, what they are doing to try to solve the problem, and the resolution, which is the end of the story, how the problem ended, and how the characters solved their problem. So mainly, as we said, that our story Laugh is talking about something related to science. And according to this illustration, as we see, we have two characters. There is a strange, weird light of everywhere. And our main one of the characters here is sitting under something. Maybe it's like a shower, or we don't know. And they are surprised, scared, we don't know. So according to this illustration, we have something weird to read about and interesting, okay? Let's start reading. In movies, geniuses have frizzy white hair. Right, they wear thick glasses and have names like Dr. Zwistian or Zwistian. Oh, weird name. Peter Lou didn't have frizzy white hair. He had straight hair as black as licorice. He didn't wear thick glasses either, since his vision was normal. So as we can see here, our story started describing who? The geniuses, the very smart people, that they have frizzy curly white hair, they are wearing thick glasses, and they have weird, strange names. But our first main character, Peter Lou, he doesn't have a frizzy white hair. He had straight hair as black as licorice. Here, the writer or the author is describing Peter, our main character, that his hair is black as licorice. Licorice, it's like the black candy, or a black plant that some people use it to make juice. So here the author used simile. The author used simile to compare Peter's hair with licorice using as. So this is simile, and we use simile in description. And also, Peter didn't wear eyeglasses because his vision is normal, which means that he has a good eyesight. But from this paragraph, we can understand that Peter is a very genius person, or a very genius boy. Peter's family, like ours, had immigrated from China, but they had settled here first when we moved into a house just 2 doors down from the Luz. They gave us some good advice on how to get along in America. So, from this, we can understand that is Peter narrating his story? Is he telling a story about himself? No, he's not. So the narrator is someone else, maybe someone very close to Peter. We will know later who's this person who's narrating and who's telling the story about Peter. But here, from this sentence, Peter's family, like ours, which means the narrator's family, immigrated, which means moved from one country to another from China. So we can understand that Peter's family and also the narrator's family are Chinese, which means that their original country is China. And they lived and settled here. Where is here? From this paragraph, we know that it's America. When we moved into a house just 2 doors down from the Luz, which means that they are neighbors. So the narrator and Peter are neighbors. They are living in the same neighborhood. 2 doors down from the Luz, which means that 2 doors or 2 houses beside Peter's house. Peter's family gave the narrator's family some advice about how to get along in America, which means how to adapt in America, how to get used to live in America, and because for them it's a new place. I went to the same school as Peter, and we walked to the school bus together every morning. Like many Chinese parents, mine made sure that I worked very hard in school. So who's I? This subject pronoun refers to the antecedent, who's the narrator, and we will know who's the narrator later. So Peter and the narrator are walking together to the school bus every morning, and they are going to the same school. And like many Chinese parents, mine, which means the narrator's parents, as we said, because Peter and the narrator are Chinese, they make sure that I'm doing very well in the school. I think this sentence gives us a trait or a feature about the Chinese parents, that they really care about their children's education, and they care about their children, how to work very hard in school. In spite of all I could do, my grades were nothing compared to Peter's. He was at the top in all his classes. We walked to the school bus without talking because I was a little scared of him. Besides, he was always deep in thought. Oh, so this is a description of Peter. The narrator said even the narrator is working very hard in school, and the narrator is not bad in school, studying a lot. Even though Peter's grades or Peter's marks are better than the narrator's marks and grades. And Peter is always on the top of all his classes. In all the subjects, he's the best. He's the first one. So this is also a description for Peter's personality, that he is a very hard-working student. We walked to the school bus without talking. So either they are neighbors, they are neighbors, and they go to the same school, and they are walking every morning to the school bus, but they don't talk. Because I was a little scared of him. The narrator was a little bit scared of Peter because he's not talking with anyone. Besides, he was always deep in thought. He's always thinking. As we see here in the illustration, he's always holding books in his hands, sitting alone, thinking, keep thinking alone, and he is not talking with anyone. And I think because of that, he is unsociable boy. Peter didn't have any friends. Most of the kids thought he was a nerd because they saw his head always buried in books. I didn't think he even tried to join the rest of us or cared what the others thought of him. Oh, so as we said, he's not talking too much. He's always deep in thought, thinking. He's always studying. He's always reading, and he has no friends. So here, Peter is unsociable and unfriendly boy. And most of the kids thought that he's a nerd, which means that he's studying a lot. He's always studying. That's why they saw his head always buried in books. This is idiom, which means that he's always reading and studying. He's always holding books to read. Like here, you see, even he's going in the morning to the bus, to the school bus, he's holding books to read and study. That's why his head is always buried in books, which means that he keeps reading and studying. I, who's the narrator, didn't think he even tried to join the rest of us. Us means the kids, the children, the students in the school. He doesn't care to participate with them in anything, to join them in anything. And even though he didn't care about what people thought of him, even what people think about him, he doesn't care. Okay? Now, then he surprised us all as I went down the block trick or treating, dressed as a zucchini in my green sweats. I heard a strange deep voice behind me say, "How do you do?" Oh, so one day Peter surprised everybody. When the narrator was going to the block, which means the neighborhood, one day for trick or treating, which means the Halloween day, the narrator was dressing a zucchini, which is the green squash, a plant or a vegetable. The narrator was wearing a costume like a zucchini, and it was green. The narrator heard a strange voice behind the narrator says, "How do you do?" I yelped and turned around. Peter was wearing a long black Chinese gown with slits in the sides. On his head, he had a little round cap, and down each side of his mouth drooped a thin, long mustache. So, when the narrator yelped, shouted, and turned around suddenly because she or he was scared, Peter was there for the first time. He's participating and joining the kids in something, in a celebration or an activity in the neighborhood. He was wearing long black Chinese gown costume, their long dress with slits in the sides, which means openings on the both sides of the dress. And on his head there's a round cap, and he was putting a long thin mustache, drooped, which means tangled mustache, like usually the Chinese used to put. So here we have a description of Peter's appearance or Peter's look in the Halloween night or in the Halloween day. "I am Dr. Lu Manchu, the mad scientist," he announced, putting his hands in his sleeves and bowing. So he introduced himself as Dr. Lu Manchu. As we said, that scientists used to have weird names. The mad scientist, he also considered himself as a mad scientist. And he bows to greet the narrator, and this is a traditional way of greeting that usually Chinese used to do it. He smiled when he saw me staring at his costume. It was a scary smile somehow. So he smiled at the narrator when he saw the narrator looking at him, staring at him, because everybody was surprised that Peter is with them, joining them, wearing costumes and joining the activity or the celebration. Some of the other kids came up, and when they saw Peter, they were impressed, surprised, and amazed, and pleased also that Peter finally joined them. "Hey, neat," said one boy. I hadn't expected Peter to put on a costume and go trick-or-treating like a normal kid. So maybe he did want to join all the others after all, at least some of the time. So usually normal kids play, participate in activities, join others in anything. But Peter was not a normal kid actually. But after all, he wants to be a normal kid because he is a kid, and inside himself, I'm sure he wants to play, to join other kids in their playing or anything they are doing. So finally, he's started changing and stopped being unsociable or nerd or sitting alone as he used to do. After that night, he wasn't a nerd anymore, so he's not unsociable anymore. Now he started being friendly with everybody. He was Dr. Lu Manchu. Even some of the teachers began to call him that. He gave himself this nickname, Dr. Lu Manchu, and everyone was calling him with this name. Even he started being sociable and friendly with everybody. Even the teachers were calling him that name. When we became too old for trick or treating, Peter was still Dr. Lu Manchu. The rumor was that he was working on a fantastic machine in his parents' garage, but nobody had any idea what it was. So now Peter and our narrator get older to do or to go for trick or treating like kids. Maybe they are now in high school, and in that time, there was a rumor about Peter. What was the rumor? Oh, he is working on a fantastic machine in his garage or in his parents' garage, but no one knows anything about this machine. Okay. One evening, as I was coming home from a babysitting job, I cut across the loose backyard, passing their garage. I saw through a little window that the light was on. My curiosity got the better of me, and I peeked in. One evening, our narrator was coming back from this is our narrator, from her babysitting job. And because, as we said, they are neighbors with Peter, she used to take the backyard as a shortcut to go to her house instead of going in a long way. And she used to pass in his backyard. And one day when she was passing there, she saw the little window of the garage and she saw a light inside there. And she wanted to know what is the machine that everybody was talking about, what Peter is doing inside. I peeked in, I sneaked, I looked secretly through the window to see Peter what he's doing, 'cause my curiosity got the better of me. What does it mean? Curiosity means the desire that people have and let them to feel eager and interested and excited to know what is happening or what is going around. Okay, so because she's curious, she tried to peek through the window to see what's happening. Even peeking is not nice because it's not polite or correct to peek through others' windows inside their houses to see what they are doing. But maybe because they are neighbors and the rumor that is talking about the machine let her do this. Okay, now let's see what our narrator saw through the window.